Welcome to the Giving Circle, where we speak with leaders shaping what responsible and meaningful giving looks like today. We are so excited to have Will Straw. He's the CEO of King's Trust International. Will, welcome to the podcast. It's wonderful to have you.
Thanks very much, Jayant. Wonderful to be here.
Will, I'll let you kind of share, something about yourself to the audience. So please go right ahead.
Thanks very much, Jayant. It's a great pleasure to be on the Giving Hour with you. I'm as you said, CEO of King's Trust International. I've been in this role for 5 years now. In my career, I've had the privilege of working in both the public and the third sector, and a brief period in the private sector as well. Mainly a purpose-driven career. Started working in the Treasury in the UK as a civil servant. I then worked on policy in both Washington, DC and London. I then worked on EU matters, including involvement in the 2016 EU referendum in the UK. And then for the last decade, I've been running charities. So previously, a charity in the international development sector, and then King's Trust for the last 5 years, focused on youth employment and opportunity around the world. Of course, partnering over the last several years with Magic Bus in India.
Well, let me start this by kind of, first is, I think, thank you for your partnership. It's been almost 8 years now with King's Trust, and we've had a fantastic relationship. You've been a strategic partner to us. We've learned a lot from you, and we've brought in a lot of things that we've learned from the program that you do in London and the rest of the world. We brought it to a program in India, and it's really helped us expand, bring in a really good quality delivery. So in view of this collaboration, which is so effective in creating a sustainable employment pathways for youth in India, what are the key lessons that stand out from this journey for you?
Well, I think the first thing to say is it's been a genuinely mutually reinforcing partnership. We've learned a huge amount from Magic Bus and the approach that you take. Magic Bus's reach in India is obviously very significant. Not dissimilar to the role that the King's Trust plays in the UK as a long-standing, well-established, well-respected charity with significant reach. Whereas King's Trust International, now in our 11th year, founded in 2015, only started working in India, as you say, 8 years ago. And we had no experience working in India prior to building the partnership with Magic Bus. Of course, partnership is at the heart of what we do with our operating model. We don't seek to deliver programs ourselves in countries around the world. We seek to find first-class partners like Magic Bus who've got existing experience on youth skilling, youth employment programs. And we couldn't have found a better partner. We obviously run our Get Into and Get Hired program together. The Get Into program supports young people over multi-weeks, preparing them with the skills they'll need in the world of work, some technical skills as well, and then places them in a work placement, helping them to overcome what we call the experience gap, where employers are unwilling to hire young people because they don't have experience, but young people can't get a job because they lack experience. And then the Get Hired program, which is a shorter intervention with a couple of days of CV preparation, interview preparation, leading up to a jobs fair for young people who are a bit more work ready, a bit closer to the labour market. I think the key lessons from our point of view, the things that have worked very well in India, which we have sought to take to Get Into programs and Get Hired programs in other parts of the world, including in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Jamaica and Barbados, in Greece, in Jordan, many countries around the world where we operate a similar program. First of all, the importance of the employer partnership. We can't make the program work if we don't have work placements for the young people. And of course, in a country like India, growing rapidly, there are job opportunities for young people, even if those employers are struggling to find work-ready youth. And that's really where we get in. But we've got to build those relationships with employers. We've got to convince them that we can offer them something. And I think we've done that over time. I know the feedback that Magic Bus and King's Trust International have had from employers is that the young people who are recruited through our program are likely to be more reliable, higher performing than from other recruitment routes. So I think that's absolutely critical, and something I've heard firsthand from employers in places like Chennai and Delhi. Secondly, the importance of listening to the young people. So young people's needs change over time, and we hold focus groups with young people when they've completed the program, trying to understand what worked well and what could be improved, and then working with the Magic Bus team to iterate the program to make sure that it's responsive to young people's needs. And I think a great example of that has been how we've embedded climate literacy into the program in the last 2-3 years, something that young people were looking for. Obviously, there are more and more opportunities, not just for pure green jobs in new sectors like renewables, but jobs in many sectors where there's a greater consciousness about the environmental impact. And we've, of course, embedded those modules into the program. So I think those are two things that we've done together that have been fantastic lessons and mean that we're in this very strong position where, 4 out of 5 of the young people that go through the program are in work or return to education after completing the program.
You make a really interesting point. Actually, you're getting into program. That's really helped us, drive our demand-led program. We've picked up from that. So before we actually even start a program, we already line up the employers. So it just helps us, once they pass out of the program, participants, and they can get into jobs very quickly. So that's really helped us kind of, build in a lot of efficiency in the programs and help us scale. The second point that you make, which is very interesting, is about the employer connects. So in fact, we've institutionalized that. We have 4,000 plus employees now, and we do a meet in every large Indian city now, once a year definitely, where we are actually, and learning from them as to what is it that, you need, how is the world changing with AI, what kind of talent you require, how do we make, provide better training. So that also, I think that's really helped. And the third thing, which you said was really, really important, is understanding the young people, right? So, the voice of the young people. So we, in fact, started another video podcast, which is called YUWOW, YUWOW. So Yuva in India means young person. And we've added that wow, and into that. Ki Awaz, so the voice of the youth. So we've added that to our program now. So if we have good podcasts over there, it's getting a lot of traction now. Well, let me move to the next question, So you had a fantastic, you've been a bureaucrat in the civil services, etc., and then, a good amount of time that you spent in different functions across. What experience shaped your belief that tackling youth unemployment requires systemic change along with programmatic interventions?
Well, I think ensuring that young people have opportunities, are able to fulfill their potential, is one of the greatest challenges that any generation faces. And it's a collective challenge. Young people obviously need to take their own agency in carving their futures, but we all have a role to play. And it's a genuine partnership between governments, business, and the third sector. And of course, education institutions fit across all three of those areas. I think young people today are facing unprecedented challenges. The long shadow of COVID hangs over many young people who had their education disrupted and perhaps impacted with mental health challenges. Of course, right around the world, there's a greater understanding of mental health needs, but also increasing diagnosis as well. The climate crisis gets worse each year, and that, of course, affects the whole of society, but it affects young people, disrupting their way of life. We've seen conflict, sadly, growing in regions of the world which are displacing young people and, again, interrupting their education, their start in life. And then exacerbating all of this is what's happening in terms of technology, the AI revolution, which holds fantastic possibilities and opportunities for young people, but also is going to erode some of the entry-level roles that young people have used as their pathway into work. And that's something that obviously concerns us. And we need to take a two-pronged approach to this. First of all, we need to identify the new jobs that are being created. Actually, there are many more jobs in IT and digital services now than there were 20 years ago. But also there's more jobs in the service sector generally, as societies and economies upskill and upscale. And what had been routine manufacturing roles or more mundane roles have been replaced by robots, by computers. Young people are working more in the service sector. So, I think right around the world, we're seeing a massive increase in jobs in the hospitality and tourism sector. That's a great opportunity. Of course, there are new sectors like renewable energy, growth in recycling, which offer new opportunities, and of course that digital sector. So we've got to prepare young people for those new jobs and make sure they've got the skills that they'll need to utilize those jobs. I think as we see more jobs replaced by AI, what will distinguish young people, and indeed all of us, is human skills. Those core skills that Magic Bus and King's Trust International and other organisations focus on, that self-confidence, communication skills, the teamwork, the managing feelings, the resilience, and so on. These are absolutely critical and things that it's going to take a very long time for computers to emulate. They may get there in the end, but they're not there yet, and it's something that young people can focus on. And I think the thing that really drives me is seeing what the consequences could be of not fulfilling young people's ambitions. I think we've already seen in some countries around the world recently where there have been significant youth-led protests, where young people feel they're not getting a fair crack at the whip, where they feel they're not having opportunity to fulfill their potential, and we have to be very mindful of that. Of course, there are some regions of the world, notably sub-Saharan Africa, where there's very significant demographic changes, many young people entering the world of work. I think the World Bank estimates that over the next decade, there'll be 1.2 billion young people joining the labour market, but only 420 million formal jobs in those economies. And that leaves a very significant number of young people who are going to have to seek self-employment and entrepreneurship to make their way in life. So all of that's what motivates me. It's what motivates King's Trust International. Of course, it's what motivates our founder, King Charles, as well.
I had the good fortune, thanks to you, meeting him recently. So such as His Highness, such a simple, down-to-earth person, I thought he was not keeping very well that day. Still made it a point to be over there. I think there's a lot to learn from him. Very lucky to be working. Absolutely, and of course, when he was a young man, 50 years ago, we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the King's Trust this year. So in 1976, then a prince used his severance pay from the British Navy to create the first enterprise grants, supporting young entrepreneurs in disadvantaged parts of the UK to get their business off the ground. As with many of the issues that he has championed, he was somewhat ridiculed at the time. People said that money would be wasted and no good would come from the initiative. But instead, King's Trust has grown to be the largest youth employment and skills charity in the UK, and now working in around 25 countries around the world. And it's his vision that every young person should have the chance to succeed that has really driven all of our work, and of course helped us build fantastic partnerships, including with Magic Bus. Coming to my next and the last question, Wills, you've seen with AI, all the kind of automation which is kind of happening. How do you see this partnership kind of, move ahead with AI coming in, and how are we kind of, how would we leverage it? What are the threats in terms of, AI? How do we build this partnership, take it to the next level so that we are still continuing to kind of, help the young people, the marginalized, economically empowered? What's really important is that we are helping young people gain the digital skills that they'll need that's appropriate to them. So, I've no doubt that in some of the major cities where Magic Bus and King's Trust International work together, as in the UK and in other major cities and economies around the world, there is a significant growth in both opportunities presented by AI, but also risks, and that young people will need advanced skills to succeed. And much of that will be about harnessing AI. We hear a lot about prompt engineers, and I think we've all been on a journey in the last few years since ChatGPT and other
publicly available AI platforms have been made available in terms of enhancing how we take that forward.
So let me kind of turn this question around. Tell me one thing. You said that you have a 10 and 11-year-old. What
10 and 12,
skills
yeah.
do you provide to them today that they are relevant when they're there to get a job?
Human skills are absolutely critical. I mean, it's of course, young people discovering who they are, discovering what what drives them. Human skills are at the heart of that. So the ability to communicate, the ability to have empathy with others, the ability to, I talk to my sons about this all the time, manage their feelings. Of course, we all feel anger, disappointment, sadness, joy, and part of the key of growing up is managing those emotions, not repressing the emotions, but finding a positive way to channel them. And that's absolutely critical, I think, for young people as well. I do think it's important to recognise that the digital skills that young people need varies hugely by their circumstances. So while learning advanced digital skills will make sense in many of the places where Magic Bus and King's Trust International are working together and indeed separately, there'll be other circumstances, perhaps in very rural, poorer communities, where it's going to be basic digital skills that are important. We work in rural parts of Kenya with an enterprise challenge program inspiring entrepreneurship as a viable career path for young people in a secondary school setting, a high school setting, and using a business simulation game as part of the curriculum. In many instances, it's the first time that a young person has ever seen or worked with a laptop. So you've got some very basic skills, including just simply how you turn it on, how you use a keyboard, how you use a mouse, how you navigate a home screen, that are equally important. In a generation's time, I'm sure that even those communities will have devices, as standard, but they don't at the moment. And it's important to remember that different contexts require different levels of digital skills, and not all communities will be affected equally by AI.
Interesting. And I love what you said, when I asked you, what skills are you going to provide to your sons? Life skills is what you're saying, the new age skills, right?
Exactly.
Compassion, empathy, feeling for other people.
Yeah.
That's really important.
And just to bear that out, Jayant, I mean, so much of our education systems are geared on the one hand towards academic knowledge. And, many of your listeners, may have excelled academically, gone on to higher education, got undergrad or even graduate degrees, doctorates. It's obviously critical and drives much of the basic research that underpins science and technology in the world today. But academic knowledge can become obsolete, and on its own doesn't necessarily drive wealth creation and job opportunities. Secondly, quite rightly, there's a big focus on vocational training, but I know that employers often think that the vocational training courses that are available are actually out of date for the needs of the modern workplace. You'll often hear, for example, governments saying, "Oh, we must train more coders." Coding is absolutely critical skill in the modern world. Well, many coding jobs are going to be made obsolete by AI because it will be able to do it much more quickly. So is that really the right focus? Sometimes vocational training programs can get out of date with what the economy needs. The one thing that is undertaught in schools is those life skills, core skills, human skills.
I completely kind of agree with you in the sense that I think the degrees and qualifications will become a little less important. I think the skills that you have will become more important. I also feel that this AI is a great enabler, especially for countries which are so huge like India. Different nooks and corners. You could actually get the best of learning to reach the remotest of corners now. You can have an Oxford or Harvard course reach some tribal town in Odisha, Jharsuguda, and you could actually have the girl over there learn whatever she wants to really learn. So it's a great opportunity, at the same time. So and with the cycles getting shorter in terms of I think with the way the technology is advancing, and how we live, how we work. Everything's going to change far more quickly than it's ever changed before. And that's where I think the ability to bounce back, to have resilience, to be a continuous learner is going to be a very, very important quality. You make a really important point about that, life skills. So thank you. Wills, I have a couple of, rapid fire questions if you allow. So if you kind of, so what are the life lessons you would like to share with our young people today? I think to some extent you've already done that. It's no more. So, but good to kind of, any personal examples or something that you would like to share.
Well, I think curiosity is absolutely critical, and it's important for young people. It's important for old people as well. Being curious about the world around you, asking questions of people you meet, trying to gain as much as you can from their experience. Reading widely, or perhaps in this era, listening to a wide array of podcasts to help you understand about the world around you. Taking an interest in science and technology, not taking the incredible advances in science and technology as given, but trying to understand, how is it possible that you and I, in different continents, are having this conversation today, and that this conversation is being recorded and will be shared and listened to by many others, perhaps in totally different countries. It's an extraordinary, we take it for granted now, but it's extraordinary that this technology is so ubiquitous. So I think that curiosity about the world is something that will stand people in good stead. Not getting sort of stuck in a rut, and just being comfortable with what you've got around you, but constantly sort of being eager to learn more.
Okay, and you manage a huge territory and a huge responsibility, 40 odd countries, if I'm not wrong. So what keeps you grounded in one sentence?
Well, certainly my kids.
I thought you were going to say your wife.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get too burdened by the responsibility or too grand about the opportunities that you get when you go home and have two kids who just want to play football in the garden with you, or build Lego, or tell you how out of touch you are with the world that they inhabit. So in a sentence, I'd say my kids are what keeps me grounded.
Well, Will, it's been lovely to have you on this podcast. Thank you to you and King's Trust, for being such a good partner. And look forward to meeting you very soon, whenever you are next here or I'm there in London. And thank you once again.
Thanks, Jayant, and thanks to everyone at Magic Bus for being such fantastic partners. We're so proud of everything we've achieved together, but there's so much more to do. But thank you. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you so much.